One of the big questions is always engagement. There's engagement at the business level, engagement at the state to state level, and with everything going on in Russia right now, what's the appropriate response?
I have never been in favor of engagement. I think the policy sounds great to the ear, appeals to the better instincts and the generous instincts of Americans, but we have seen that it has produced very dangerous results, put the United States in mortal danger. And so I believe that the United States, for various reasons, needs to disengage. China uses every point of contact to overwhelm the US, and they are trying to bring down our government. And we've seen that with them fomenting violence on American streets, something that they started to do in 2020 and have continued. So we need to cut those ties until we can be sure that we can manage relations with China and maintain a stability of our country. So my view is that a very different one than the business communities.
I don't want to make you start issuing grades, Gordon, but I am curious your thoughts as to the Biden administration right now, because the response has shifted somewhat. How are they managing this and handling it?
The Biden administration, and Biden personally, has believed in engagement. And I believe that his view of China is one that has been an old one and has been frozen in time. But nonetheless, the Chinese have done things which have forced him to do things that he probably would have never wanted to do. So, for instance, you take a look at his executive orders on chips and chip making equipment, which I believe are great. I don't like the exemptions that he's given, the 1-year exemptions to South Korea and to Taiwan. But nonetheless, this is a move in the right direction. And then, of course, I know that many people don't like industrial policy. It does lead to inefficiency. But the chip industrial policy that, to encourage chip making in the U.S., absolutely essential. Not from an economic point of view, but from a national security point of view. So I think that those are moves in the right direction. Biden is stumbling to a better China policy, but it's largely because Xi Jinping is forcing him into adopting policies that he doesn't like. I think the president should go faster. I think he should go further. But nonetheless, the United States is moving in the right direction.
One last question, if you don't mind, Gordon, which is I recall well when your book came out about the coming collapse of China, and have the conditions shifted to where this is now realistic? When you think about the various scenarios you've played out in your mind, what are some of the real pivot points that you think really mark a different way of thinking about this now?
Yeah, in 2001, I wrote The Coming Collapse of China, and I predicted that the Communist Party would fall within 10 years. So I think I'm probably out of time. In my defense, I will say that I did not foresee the 2008 downturn, which changed things. But what we're seeing today, Diane, I think is very much shows that the regime is unstable. And these protests are Exhibit A. But I think that the problem is ultimately, fundamentally for the Communist Party is the situation. People compare what happened over the last couple of weeks to 1989, but I don't think that's right. 1989, yes, there were nationwide protests, 370 cities, but the protesters they weren't calling for the Communist Party to step down. What they wanted was to get rid of a premier, Li Peng, who was a hardliner, and they wanted the party to open up. The situation, I think, that we see today is similar to 1949. In 1949, the communists, who were outgunned in every way by Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists, actually won. And they won because, as a famous Chinese historian, Yu Yongshi, has said, that the nationalists had lost people's hearts. And that's why they failed. And they failed in the face of a far inferior foe. And so that's the problem with the Communist Party today. They have lost people's hearts. They can coerce, they can intimidate, they can imprison, but they can't lead. And this means that ultimately they will fail because the Chinese people understand that the root cause of their problems in Chinese society is the Communist Party governance.
In a one-party state, what's the alternative? The example you cited was basically Chiang Kai-shek versus Mao Zedong. We don't have that bilateral situation now. If the party does fall, what do you predict happens then? Is it just an opening up and a new leadership?
Well, since I have such a great track record on predicting things, let me hazard one more. We just don't know. I mean, martial law would seem to be an interim solution. I think the Chinese people will struggle. Of course, as you point out very correctly, on the mainland, they don't have very much in the way of democratic precedents. They had a brief democratic opening in 1912 or so, which lasted a few months. So they don't have many precedents to fall back on, but they do have Taiwan. I mean, people in Taiwan don't consider themselves Chinese, but the people in the mainland consider them to be Chinese. And in Taiwan, regardless of self-identification, you have a vibrant democracy. And so that, I think, is the precedent. Plus, also, you got democracies along the periphery of China. Those are precedents as well.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Gordon.
Thank you so much, Diane.